There can be only one podcast and may it be the Prince of the Universe. Hi, folks. I'm Matt for the last time solo. Talking about DirecTV. Don't just watch TV. DirecTV. Oh, man. Did I save the best for last? I don't know. Talking about DirecTV, my times at DirecTV. Crazy times. We had my buddy Sean, who I've talked about before in the previous podcast here. He always liked to do monthly one-on-ones with everyone. And I saw this guy walking down the hallway because Sean wanted to use my office, so he got to use my office. And because when I got to be HR, I wanted my own office. You better. And I loved my office. I loved my private little office. I had a secretary. Her name was Sharon, and me and Sharon were thick as thieves. Her boyfriend worked at the call center and eventually got fired, but she still stayed on. I said, "Do you need to leave? Are you leaving with him?" Because I can respect that. I said, "Really?" And so she called Brandon's like, "No, I'll stay with Matt. Matt's a cool guy." But he was just pissed at everyone except for me. He kind of rage quit. But anyway, she and I were best of friends too. I remember the first time she came in, she said, "So what do you want me to do?" I was like, I don't know. They just gave me a secretary. They said, "Do you want a secretary?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I don't know what you're supposed to do, so we'll figure out something." And to be honest, we did get a little, I delegated some of the easier work to her, and she was top-notch on it. And when they finally closed it down, I told her goodbye. I told her I was sorry, and she was fine. She actually took it better than me. I was pissed, and we had to let her go. But, of course, I was leaving, too, at that time. But anyway, Sean wanted to use my special office, which I can close my eyes and see today. I'm just reminiscing. Anyway, so one of the guys was walking down there and before he walked in, dropped his pants. And I just looked at him, and he was like looking at me, giving thumbs up, and then walked in there in his underwear. And I hear Sean yelling, "Get your damn pants back on!" And I remember walking away going, I don't know what's going on here. Now, the thing is, now looking back on it, back then I was thinking, wow, this is how every business is. And it wasn't. It was not like this. This is 2008, right? This is not how every business was. But I just thought, this must be how the world is. I really thought that. And I remember just shaking my head thinking, oh man, but man, to imagine anything like that happening at any business that's not mom and pop these days is just kind of shocking to me. One of my most fantastic ideas that I ever had was rearranging the way we paid people, our commission. Our commission sucked because you had to be at a certain percentage to get high paid. So what people do is they get their percentage really high and then refuse to take calls for the last few days of the month, right? Because if they did and their percentage dropped, they wouldn't make as much. Where people who made us way more sales took a lot of calls but got paid peanuts. It wasn't fair. So I came up, I designed it, tested. The guy made me, test my theory with, the numbers and see how we would have paid people. Would we have paid him more? I said, yes, we would have paid this guy more, but he's our top earner. Top sales means top earner. This is the people we should be keeping. We shouldn't be keeping these idiots. They're not taking as many calls. We're paying them more hourly to take less calls, and we're paying them more for their little sales. So we're paying the money is basically the same. It's just being allocated to the right people. And he loved it, but I had to write this big, it was theses and papers, everything. I had to do graphs and what ifs and all this stuff, and I hate it. And I get what he was doing. He was just double checking it. And to be honest, that was the moment we became friends, because I walked into his office and I said, "Do you hate me?" We actually just talked about this at Christmas. We were laughing about it. I said, "Do you hate me?" He went, "What?" I said, "Do you hate me?" And because I thought he's making me do all this stuff because he didn't trust me. And he said, "No, man, we're doing it because, it's a great idea, but I just want to make sure it works." And then the vice president wanted to get involved before I gave it to the owner and said, "Hey, I want that. I want the whole report on my desk. He said, because, knowing you probably don't have it. He said, make it professional. Like I can't do anything professional. I was kind of offended by this. I was still, no, I think I was HR back then, but I was still offended that he didn't trust me. So what I did is I called it the DirecTV Bible. I copied the verses from Genesis 1 and changed them to, God, in the first day, God created DirecTV, and he saw that it was good. In the evening or in the morning were the first day. On the second day, God created the sports packages for DirecTV, and he saw that they too were good. Both hockey and football, baseball and soccer, and it was good. And the second day, and the evening and the morning were the second day. I seriously spent more time creating the fake Bible. One of them had bikini pictures of women in bikinis. It had nothing but that. And so it was just all like garbage. I did that for him on purpose just to make fun of it. And I gave it to him, flopped it on his desk, and he started laughing. And then I gave him the real one. But I guess he felt like, okay, maybe I was a little too harsh on you. Maybe. I don't know. He was the guy that ended up telling me I was fired. I mean, there was no one left by that point. But anyway, another great story was the day the Secret Service came to visit us. Yes, that Secret Service from the president. Someone thought they would run George Bush's credit to see what type of credit he had. Yeah. Yep. That's what he did. And I was aghast, right? I could not believe someone had actually run George Bush's credit. And we knew this because the next day, the Secret Service showed up. They wanted to know who ran the president's credit, who's responsible, what was their purpose, what's going on here. Well, we didn't have anything. We knew it was on second shift. We knew what time it happened, but we weren't tracking people's computers. And I was HR, so I was brought in on it. When I tell you we got chewed up one wall, across the ceiling, and down the other, he made our boss pay for it cost over $1 million. I remember, I'm not making this up. It was $1 million system. We had to get this big renovation. It cost $1.1 million. I almost died. I could see the blood drain from Steve's face when he had to pay that. Now, to be honest, we were raking in $1 million a month, okay? I mean, that's gross, okay? So with expenses and taxes, he's still making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So Steve had the money. However, he wasn't planning on spending $1.1 million that day. And I remember after they left, he was so angry. He pointed at me, he went, "I want you to fire them." I went, "Who?" He said, "Everyone." I said, "Everyone?" He said, "Everyone in this call said, fire them. We're going to hire a brand new." I was like, "Stop." I said, it was someone on second shift. First off, he went, "Okay, fire the entire second shift." I said, "I'm not going to do that. It's going to kill your sales." No, he said, we'll pay double for first shift. He was just furious. "We'll pay double for first shift." I said, first shift isn't staying for two shifts. They're not going to do that. You're not going to do that. I'll talk to them. I had to talk him down off a cliff. He was DEFCON 5 at that point. And I don't blame him. I mean, I'll be honest, I was shaking after they came in. But that was quite a time. Speaking of firing everyone, I did just that. We had it was a great idea because he was asking me, how can we get more sales that we haven't thought about? Think outside the box. And I said, I want real operators, not an automated message anymore. I want real operators to take your call and direct it. I want a concierge service. And he did not. I said, he disagreed with me. I said, "Do you like an automated message?" He went, "No, I hate it." I said, "Everyone does." And then at the time, Discover was doing this advertising that they had real live agents. You didn't have to talk to a machine. You could talk to a real live agent by calling Discover. I said, and you know what? I said, when I saw that commercial, I pulled out I said, I got a Discover card. I bought a Discover card the moment I saw that commercial. And he kind of looked at me like, okay, all right. Yeah, okay, I kind of see that. So he got the point. I got to hire. And the problem was, he wanted me to hire all the people who were about to get fired. That way we could have an instant. So everyone who was the worst salesman or saleswoman got the jobs for first and second shift. I hated that idea. It was, I think, 10 on first, 10 on second, or 12 on first. It was like 10 or 12 each. I thought that was a terrible idea because they were the worst salesmen. They don't deserve this, but they really hated firing people. Everyone hated firing people but me. Shoot, the owner made me fire his partner because it was also an appliance store. It was a call center and an appliance store. He let his partner run the appliance store, the one that they had started together, and he focused so he could focus more on DirecTV, even though they were within the same building. The call center was in this appliance store. He made me fire his original partner for 30 plus years. And it was the week of Thanksgiving is when I had to fire him. I mean, brutal. In fact, the guy's name is Roger. I did run across him a few years ago, and he knew who I was. And I said, hey, Roger, obviously you remember me. He's like, yeah, from DirecTV. I said, yeah. I want to start off by saying I didn't know you were here, but I'm glad to see you because I apologize for probably how things ended a little awkward between us the last time we met. And he held up my hand. He said, I know that was Steve. I know that wasn't you. He said, I was pissed, but it wasn't you. It was at Steve. He said, I had no problem with you because I'm like, dude, I need a good selling an appliance here. He works at another appliance store now. He said, and he hooked me up with a good deal too. He was true to his word. He said, but I was glad we patched that up because I felt sending an old man. I mean, he was getting up there in his 60s on the week of Thanksgiving to go home tell his family he got fired. That was rough for me. That was probably the roughest. Well, the end was always really rough, just laying off tons of people. But you know when it wasn't? The time I found out that our manager that we had on second shift was garbage. And he wasn't running any team, and the teams were a mess. So we fired him in a heartbeat, and let him go. We were so pissed. Fired him. And so afterwards, they had no one to run the team, so I was the de facto leader. So I came in there to first shift, and I said, hey, guys, give me your complaints. What do you need? What could Patrick not give you? Well, I probably shouldn't say his name, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I said, what did he not give you that I can help with? They said, well, second shift always leaves their trash in the waste paper basket and it stinks. Oh, okay, so I should tell second shift not to do that. Okay, anything else? Nope. And I was like, okay, well, here's what I expect from you guys. And I told them, you need to show up on time. You need to, make sure you're presentable. Make sure you're working all the time and not taking breaks all the time and not taking long lunch breaks and whatnot. And I said, okay, you're dismissed. And they left. And I went to go talk to the second shift. And I waited. And I waited. And I waited. It was an hour before the first person came in to work. An hour past the time they were supposed to come in. And I said, hi, how's it going? They said, good. I said, I can't remember. I said, what time are y'all supposed to come in? And say, well, we're supposed to come in at 3, but we come in like whenever we can. I went, okay, you're fired. They went, what? I said, you're fired. You're fired. I even told the owner, I said, hey, look, it's been an hour. It was almost an hour. I said, no one's here. He went, fire them all. I said, you got it. And I did. And after the first couple of people started showing up after an hour, always with an excuse. And I always said, you're fired. Thank you, you're fired. And finally, I remember the people started calling in because they realized, oh no. And I was supposed to have today off. Really? Did you log that in with Patrick? Yeah, but I hear he's gone. Yeah, but there was no, and I knew it was a lie. I said, yeah, and I talked to him. He said everyone was on the schedule today. He must have forgot. You're fired. I was just firing everyone because I was furious. They were just taking advantage of him, and no one was working. And I was pissed because now this was my idea, and I knew it was going to be gone. And eventually, we got down to like 2 people on one in the day and one at night. We just did one person but they only took some of the calls, so it was dead in the water. And we eventually folded the whole department. But I knew that was the end of it because, unfortunately, we hired an idiot to run them. So the next morning, I'm like, I wonder if first shift comes in late too. It was, they were supposed to get in there at 7. I showed up at 6:30. The entire team was there. And you know why. Someone on second shift called first shift and said, he fired us all. And so they probably passed the word around, we better not be late. So they were all there at 6. I was there at 6:30. They had been there even earlier before me. And I stopped. I walked around the corner because there is no one. The lights are not even on, hardly. The dock people are there, and that's about it. And I was getting in with the dock people, with everyone else. They get in about 6. But anyway, 6:30, I roll around, and they're all there. And I was like, whoa, a little surprised. I went, well, hello, team. They said, hi. Mr. Wilkins said, hi. Well, this is a pleasant surprise. Do y'all always, is the shift at 6:30? I thought it was at 7. They said, no, sir, it's at 7. We just wanted to be here on time. And you could tell, that's when I knew they all heard. And I went, oh, okay. And the guy that complained about the waste paper basket stinking, his name was Raphael. And I remember going, oh, by the way, Raphael, I fixed your trash problem. Second shift won't be leaving trash in there overnight anymore. He went, yes, sir, I heard. I went, oh, you did? And I said, I assume everyone heard. And they're all nodding their heads and like, I mean, fear of God in them. And I was like, okay then. I appreciate you showing up early. To be honest, I only want you here by 7 o'clock. If you're here and logged in the phones by 7, I don't care if you come in at 6:55. Have a great day. But I can't remember, we called that Bloody Wednesday or Bloody Tuesday whenever I just, and I mean, everyone knew, but I mean, it was, I got authorization to fire. And boy, swarms of people. And of course, what had happened, once the recession hit, I remember, because I used to be a banker, and when I read in the paper that Fannie Mae, yes, newspapers were kind of still around back then. When I read that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had were going under, I was like, I don't think that's good for the economy. I remember saying that. I said, wow, I don't think that'll be that good for the economy. Only to know that later on it would force us into a recession, and I would lose my job because of it. Because of the recession, DirecTV had to tighten its purse too, because people were tightening it up on their sales now. Couldn't afford good old DirecTV. And they started closing down some of their call centers and just rerouting the calls to their home office. Smart move. So they bought Steve out, and we were done like that. And the thing is, I really respected Steve, the owner, for the longest until the end. I lost all respect for him. Sure, he lost everything, but we told him just switch over to DirecTV. Just switch to DirecTV. But he didn't want to start over again. I mean, Dish Network, excuse me. Switch to Dish Network. We can start selling Dish Network now. We've got the call center here. They just took away our license for DirecTV. We can still. He didn't want to start all. He felt it was like a defeatist strategy to start from scratch again. But he had millions of dollars of his own money in the bank. Now his cash cow is, I'm at least $250,000 every month, maybe more, was dead. But you just build over again. You rebuild that empire. And we were all for it. But first off, when it happened, he told me we were going under, but don't tell the employees yet, because he said, I don't want you to tell anyone yet. And I went, oh. And I was thinking, okay, he's going to try to save our jobs. But yet that night, he went on TV and said the recession is forcing him to close the call center down. And this is back in the day when people did watch TV. And so everyone in the call center knew we were closing, but they found it through the media. And I remember getting on to him about that, saying that was a terrible move, Steve. You shouldn't have done that. You should have come to me we could have done this differently. And then I kept trying to pump him up about saying he wanted to quit. He was just rage. It's just like a little kid whose favorite toy had been broken. He didn't want to play anymore. And he just wanted to fire everyone. And there was an used auto parts, some crackpot had tried to come up with to try to save the call center. It was a terrible idea and went under in a matter of months. I was there for like a little while. But the whole thing came crashing down, laid off everyone on second, half the people on first. The other sliver, maybe it was 1/3 of people, kept their jobs and went to sell used car parts, which was just junk. We didn't sell anything. And it was just a bad venture altogether. The store that he had neglected for years was dying, so he was selling that off too. He was just bummed about everything. He made me fire our tax guy, our accountant, who did payroll, but he first made him speed up and do the taxes real quick. So then, and the moment, I remember his name was Bruce. The moment Bruce delivered the taxes, he made me fire Bruce and his assistant. And I was just hack, fire, and we just started just firing, just laying off tons of people. And then eventually, I knew there was no more. After I'd fired the last of the, who wasn't staying around for the call center, I remember sitting there in my office with nothing to do for the first time in years and going, oh no, I'm next. And I remember just sitting there in the office thinking, what can I tell him? What can I do? They don't need an HR guy for like 20 people. They needed it when they had a couple of 300 people. I said, I can't do it for 20. But then I thought, well, maybe I could, I'm still trying to come up with a pitch. So I worked on my pitch to keep my job. Well, and I'm getting way overpaid, by the way, for this job too. But I sat down, I said, here's my plan for the call center, for our new one. We're going to build this up. I'm going to start working on training. We're going to do this. And he said, I don't think I need you anymore. I just don't see why I should be paying you so much. And then they offered to have me become a salesman again. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Plus, I don't believe in selling used car parts. So I'll be honest, I got a little teary-eyed when the vice president said, you're gone. And he said, hey man, I'm here. I was like, oh, and I was just mad. He went, I believe someone like you will do really good though. And, good, best of luck to you. And, it was a recession and there was nothing. And of course I languished from one part-time job to the next. Maybe that's a podcast for another day, but I went to help out a tax accountant for a little while. I did radio for a little while, sold radio spots while DJing in the morning. And then I sold some insurance, the lowest of lows for me, to be honest, when I was selling life insurance to people, door to door life insurance, the worst job in the world, but there were good people involved. And to be fair, well, I guess I could say this, to be fair, I did make top 10 salesmen within 3 months. Because again, when you got to put bread on the table, I was selling my heart out, and I made it exactly at number 10. I was still in my training phase at 3 months, and I remember they were so happy. It was in their little newsletter that a new guy, and I remember the manager brought me into his office, bought me breakfast, told me, he said, hey son, here's the deal. So you can't be a manager with us until you're at least 6 months in. But I told him, I convinced home office to make you to get you in management and training. So you're gonna be training in the mornings to be a manager. And I promise you, son, you stay with me. I will make you a manager in 3 months. I promise you. And all the other managers are coming in promising me the same thing. They want me to be a manager. Please hang it, because they knew. Because I told them, I said, I'm only here until I have to find something else, because I don't want sales. I need a more steady income. And managers got a guaranteed income no matter what, and bonuses for sales. So that's why he was trying to keep me. He didn't want to lose me. They were so happy. And I just accepted my job to the place I work now. And I'll be honest, he was brokenhearted about that. And I was friends with him for quite some time. I am sadly thinking he died. He was old back then. But I really liked him and all the other people. I don't believe that insurance place exists anymore. But I remembered all the people. I went back like a few months later just to visit. I always like to visit back at my old jobs. And he thought I was coming in to accept the manager job. And I felt so awful about that. So I didn't go back and visit him. But he smoked like a chimney, and he smelled like it too. But he was a good, Mr. Ray, I think was his name, and he was a good guy. But anyway, yeah, I still was good in sales. But I remember every day just dragging my feet, like just when I didn't have a good sales day, because I was trying to save my house at the time. I'd just gotten married. My wife, I was afraid my wife was marrying a bum. Doing DJ work was just minimum wage. Doing the tax accountant thing was nice, but it was only seasonal. And that tax accountant guy, for his credit, was trying to get me on full time. He just had, his partner died years ago, and the secretary he had was so old that she didn't do much, but he was too soft-hearted to fire her, and he kept trying to get her to retire and go move to her kids in Florida or whatever. And he said, son, if she moves, I swear I will give you a full-time job. You're going to work for me. And we really hit it off, and I really wanted to work for him. I could, because it was just me and him in the office, and we got along fine, except for the occasional customer that came in. I learned how to do my taxes because of him. I learned the tricks of the trade. I haven't been, getting that many tax cuts. I have to pay some checks now, but taxes have gone up since then. But I still try to find ways to, cut my costs on my taxes there. But thanks to him, he taught me how. And I remember when I got the job that I'm at now, the original plan was I was going to work nights at my job and then days with him. And he was promising me that in the next few months, he was just going to tell her, you got to go. I can't afford you no more. I'm so sorry. Go on, you go live. He was going to get her out, and I was going to come in full time. And please don't, because the job I had, I was happy with, and the job I have, of course, now. But would I have accepted a full-time job from him? Maybe. I was tempted. He was such a lovable guy, and he was promising me more money. He was going to free up he was going to give me her big salary that she'd gotten over the years. He was going to transfer that to me. I was going to be his right-hand man. I was thinking, yeah, maybe I can do this. And, it was up in the air. But the day that I got hired, they had changed me from second shift to first shift. I was like, oh, no, I'm going to have to tell him I can't work for him. And I don't even know if, at this point, I was really liking, on my first day, everyone was so nice. I knew instantly this is the place I wanted to be at. So I went to go tell him. He wasn't in the office that day. And I was like, what happened? Did he sleep in? I'm kind of laughing at it. I said, the one day he sleeps in. No, he died that day. My first day at my new job was his last day on the face of the earth. He stood up supposedly from his bed, died straight there of a heart attack immediately. Went to his funeral. His family thanked me for being there and told me how much that he loved me, and I was part of his family and stuff. And it was really kind. And his son I used to see every so often, and we'd talk, and he'd tell me how much Dad meant to me and stuff, and how he wasn't really that nice of a son to his dad, but he loved his dad. He probably could have been better, but he was so glad I was there for his dad because his dad wanted him to be in the business, is what the whole thing was. But anyway, crazy stuff. It's been a crazy life. And I'm thankful for everything. I'm thankful for my job now. I'm thankful for the times I had at DirecTV. I still have a soft spot for DirecTV. I don't have any allegiance to them. I would never get them now because cable is not something I'd watch anymore. If I'm going to watch something, it's going to be streaming now. But those days, and I was so bummed. I was crushed. I did boo-hoo when I came home. I tried not to boo-hoo in front of my wife, but I probably did too. She probably heard me. I just boo-hooed into a pillow. When I got let go, I felt like trash, garbage. That was the best times of my life. I would not the best times of my life, but those were really good times, really great times. And I was just my soul was crushed when the whole call center went under, and because I thought I will never love a job, because I would have stayed there forever. I thought I found my calling, because I'd bounced around a lot in my life and was getting up there in years, and I thought, man, I was already, into my 30s by then. I was thinking, dang, I've just wasted my entire life of my 20s, still don't have a current career job I can rely on. And then, of course, the Lord provides and gives me the job I'm at now, which, again, I love and would be devastated. Heartbroken, not get out of bed. It would just kill me if I ever lost this job. So because it's just been so good to me. I love it. I believe in it. All that stuff. Very thankful for it too. Yes, there are bad days, but it doesn't matter because I'll take it anyway. I'll take the good and the bad. I love all the days there. So very thankful. But I remember even praying, going, Lord, that was my favorite job ever, and you better give me something else. Something else. I don't know what, because all these temp jobs I had, I was doing them, but I did not love them. They had their ups and downs. DJ's funning, but it don't pay that much. Maybe the accountant thing only because of him, but also I didn't see it being a full-time thing for me either. But either way, Lord works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? All right, folks, thanks for letting me ramble about DirecTV. We'll be back here with Wes and special guest next time on Princes of the Universe.